And thank you for sharing with me these extracts from One Man in His Time, the show I'll be performing next year to celebrate, somewhat belatedly, the 30th anniversary of the Bell Shakespeare Company, and also to celebrate the language of Shakespeare. I know a bank where the wild thyme blows, where oxlips and the nodding violet grows, quite over-canopied with luscious woodbine, with sweet musk roses and with eglantine. There sleeps Titania some time of the night, lulled in these flowers with dances and delight. And there the snake throws her enamelled skin, weed wide enough to wrap a fairy in. Now, you can't translate that. You can translate the names of the flowers, you can translate Shakespeare's ideas and philosophy, but you can't translate those sounds, those cadences, the word music. You can't translate the Shakespeare of it. I was overwhelmed by Shakespeare's language at an early age, and by the time I was 15, I decided I was going to be an actor and go on stage and speak that language. But it wasn't just the language, there were other things too. I was struck by Shakespeare's humanity, his deep understanding of the workings of the human mind and heart. He had an interest in all levels of society, and that often led him to empathize with the underdogs, the outcasts, who were discriminated against by society, people like Othello, the black man, Caliban, the so-called savage, and Shylock, the Jewish moneylender in The Merchant of Venice. All his life, Shylock has been victimized by the Christian community, mocked, reviled, spat on. And so when he's asked why he wants to be revenged on his chief antagonist, Antonio, Shylock answers, "He hath disgraced me, and hindered me of 500,000, laughed at my losses, mocked at my gains, scorned my nation, thwarted my bargains, cooled my friends, heated mine enemies. And what's his reason? I'm a Jew. Hath not a Jew eyes? Hath not a Jew hands, organs, dimensions, senses, affections, passions, fed with the same food, hurt with the same weapons, subject to the same diseases, cured by the same means, warmed and cooled by the same winter and summer as a Christian is? If you prick us, do we not bleed? If you tickle us, do we not laugh? If you poison us, do we not die? And if you wrong us, shall we not revenge? If we are like you in the rest, we will resemble you in that. If a Jew wrong a Christian, what is his humility? Revenge. If a Christian wrong a Jew, what should his sufferance be by Christian example? Why? Revenge. The villainy you teach me, I will execute. But it shall go hard, but I will better the instruction. Another example of Shakespeare's empathy is seen in the play of Sir Thomas More, which Shakespeare co-authored. And this piece is remarkable, not just for its content, but because it's the only page we have surviving in Shakespeare's own handwriting, and that makes it very special. And in this piece, Sir Thomas More confronts the rioters who want all refugees and strangers removed from England. Grant them removed, and grant that this your noise hath chid down all the majesty of England. Imagine that you see the wretched strangers, their babies at their backs and their poor luggage, plodding to the ports and coasts for transportation, and that you sit as kings in your desires, authority quite silent by your brawl, and you in ruff of your opinions clothed. What had you got? I'll tell you. You had taught how insolence and strong hand should prevail, how order should be quelled. And by this pattern, not one of you should live an aged man. For other ruffians, as their fancies wrought, with self-same hand, self-reasons, and self-right, would shark on you. And men like ravenous fishes would feed on one another. What country, by the nature of your error, should give you harbour? Why? You must needs be strangers. Would you be pleased to find a nation of such barbarous temper that, breaking out in hideous violence, would not afford you an abode on earth? Whet the detested knives against your throats, spurn you like dogs? What would you think to be thus used? This is the stranger's case, and this your mountainish inhumanity. Shakespeare asks a lot of serious questions about power and authority. He's sometimes regarded as an apologist for royalty, but that's a shallow reading. He was, after all, living in an age of absolute monarchy, where treason was regarded as the most serious and severely punished of crimes. So writers had to be careful. Nevertheless, Shakespeare often sails close to the wind. In Richard II, he challenges the notion of divine right. Richard is a feeble and arrogant monarch who believes that God and his angels will come to his aid when rebellion threatens. Well, they don't. And Richard is forced to abdicate and face up to his common humanity. For God's sake, let us sit upon the ground and tell sad stories of the death of kings. How some have been deposed, some slain in war, some haunted by the ghosts they have deposed, some poisoned by their wives, some sleeping killed, all murdered. For within the hollow crown that rounds the mortal temples of a king keeps death his court. And there the antic sits, scoffing his state and grinning at his pomp, allowing him a breath, a little scene to monarchize, be feared and kill with looks, infusing him with self and vain conceit, as if this flesh which walls about our life were brass impregnable. And humoured thus, comes at the last, and with a little pin bores through his castle wall. And farewell, king. Cover your heads, and mock not flesh and blood with solemn reverence. Throw away respect, tradition, form, and ceremonious duty. For you have but mistook me all this while. I live with bread like you, taste grief, feel want, need, friends. Subjected thus, how can you say to me, I am a king? Authority is challenged all the way down the line. It's not just kings and dukes who have power, but country magistrates as well. We meet a couple of them in Henry IV. They don't add much to the story, but they do add an extra colour to Shakespeare's portrait of medieval/Elizabethan England. Their names are Justice Shallow and his cousin, Justice Silence. Come on, sir. Give me a hand, sir. Give me a hand, sir. An early stirrer by the rood. And how doth my good cousin Silence? Good morrow, good cousin Shallow. But yeah, sir, how doth my cousin, your bedfellow, and your fairest daughter and mine, my goddaughter Ellen? Alas, a black ouzel, cousin Shallow. An ouzel? She's a cuckoo. Ah, she's a cuckoo. She's a cuckoo. But yea and nay, sir, I dare say my cousin William has become a good scholar. He's at Oxford still, is he not? Indeed, sir. To my cost. Oh, well, yeah, Oxford, yes. He must then to the Inns of Court shortly. I was once of Clement's Inn, where I think they will talk of mad Shallow yet. You were called Lusty Shallow then, cousin.
Oh, by the mass, I was called anything. I would have done anything too, and roundly too. There was I and little John Doit of Staffordshire, and Black George Barnes, and Francis Pickbone, and Will Squeal, a Cotswolds man. Ah, you had not 4 such swingebucklers in all the Inns of Court again. And I may say to you, we knew where the Boner Robers were and had the best of them all at commandment. And then there was Jack Falstaff, now Sir John. He was a boy then and page to Thomas Mowbray, the Duke of Norfolk. I saw him break Scoggin's head at the court gate when he was a cracknot thus high. And the very same day did I fight with one Samson Stockfish, a fruiterer behind Gray's Inn. Oh, Jesu, the mad days that I have seen. And to see how many of me old acquaintance are dead.
We shall all follow, cousin.
Oh, certain, very sure. Oh, yes, death, as the psalmist saith, is certain to all. Oh, yeah, all shall die, yes. Yeah. How much is a yoke of bullocks at Stamford Fair?
Truly, cousin, I wasn't there.
Oh, you weren't, I see, yeah, death is certain. Mm. Is old Double of your town living yet?
Dead, sir.
Dead? Oh, but he was only, well, I suppose he would be. Dead? Oh, he drew a good bow. Oh, he shot a fine shoot. Oh, John o' Gaunt loved him well and betted much money on his head. Dead. Oh. How much is a flock of ewes now?
They're after as they be. Good flock of ewes might cost you £10.
10 pounds, yeah. Sure. Oh. And is old Double dead?
Dead, sir. Through these 2 old magistrates, we meet Sir John Falstaff, one of Shakespeare's greatest characters. Falstaff is a liar and a thief and a coward, but he's also a great life force, full of wit and humour and a canny pragmatism. When he's called upon to fight for king and country, Falstaff decides that discretion is the better part of valour. Well then, honour pricks me on. Yea, but what if honour pricks me off when I come on? What then? Can honour set to an arm? No. Or a leg? No. Or take away the grief of a wound? No. Oh. Honour hath no skill in surgery then? No. What is honour? A word. And what is in that word, honour? Air. That's a trim reckoning. Who hath it? He that died on Wednesday. Do thee hear it? No. Do thee feel it? No. 'Tis insensible then. Yeah, to the dead. But will it not live with the living? No. Detraction will not suffer it. Well, then I'll none of it. Honour is merely words on a tombstone. And so ends my catechism. We've been going through a pretty tough time this last 6 months or so with COVID-19. It's been a time of great uncertainty. I've had my bouts of depression and anxiety, which I'm assured is quite normal. But across society at large, we have seen an increase in alcoholism, domestic violence, and suicide. In 1942, the French philosopher Albert Camus wrote, "There is only one really serious philosophical question, and that is suicide. Judging whether life is or is not worth living amounts to answering the fundamental question of philosophy." 400 years earlier, Hamlet said the same thing. To be or not to be, that is the question. When life seems meaningless and devoid of purpose, is suicide the only rational response? What did Camus decide? What does Hamlet decide? And what does Shakespeare think about it? Those are some of the issues I'll be looking at in One Man in His Time. Some people will say, but we can't know what Shakespeare thought because he's so ambivalent, so hidden inside his works. But I think that all great art is autobiographical. It moves us because it reveals something so intimate, so profoundly secret, that we are grateful for the integrity and the honesty. And some people say, well, we don't know what Shakespeare was like. We don't know what he thought, but I think we know everything about Shakespeare. We know everything that he saw, heard, thought, loved, hated. It's all there in the plays and the sonnets. But then, of course, Shakespeare was an actor, a fabulist. So it's usually very hard to decide when it's Shakespeare talking and when it's one of his characters, because he was so deeply immersed in them. So what about his last play, The Tempest? Is that autobiographical? How could it be otherwise? Consider. A great magician is leaving his magic island and giving up his art. He releases his creative spirit, Ariel. He confronts his dark side, Caliban. He forgives his enemies, bequeaths all to his children, and resigns himself to retirement, old age, and death. As an actor, Shakespeare was famous for playing the noble roles in his plays, the kings and dukes and so on. So I think it's more than likely that he played the role of Prospero himself. What better way of saying farewell to his audience? Our revels now are ended. These our actors, as I foretold you, were all spirits, and I melted into air, into thin air. And like the baseless fabric of this vision, the cloud-capped towers, the gorgeous palaces, the solemn temples, the great globe itself, yea, all which it inherit shall dissolve. And like this insubstantial pageant faded, leave not a rack behind. We are such stuff as dreams are made on, and our little life is rounded with a sleep.